Bruder, Oma is back. Today I'm going to show you how to do the ribbing or rib stitch and how to create fringes. In my first two videos I have shown you the knit stitch as well as the purl stitch. If you have knitted one scarf or washcloths as I recommended, you will end up with a garter stitch. Today I'm teaching you how to combine the knit and the purl stitch to create the ribbing. As you can see, using different kinds of ribbing, your fabric looks already different. We have here first the 1x1 rib, which is a very tight close pattern, and if you stretch it, you can recognize the purl stitch. We have the ribbing 2x2, which is also a tight pattern, and if you stretch it, you can recognize the different stitches. And just to make you see the difference between 1x1 and 2x2, which usually is used knitting a scarf, I have knitted 4 purl and 2 knit stitches so that you have a wider selection, first of all, how to knit your ribbing and how to use it, and using it as well for different projects you might want to do. You started out with the knit stitch, you continued with the purl stitch, and in the end your pattern had shown the garter stitch, which you know is, by now should know, it's on both sides showing the same pattern. The same actually is true for the ribbing. If you rib 1x1 or 2x2, even with 4x2, you will create a pattern that is usable on both sides, and it's mostly used also for knitting scarves or making the blending on a sweater. When you start your work in a pattern, you need to make sure to calculate the right amount of stitches for the pattern repeat. Your calculation depends on the thickness of your yarn and the needle sizes. You can find the information on the band wrapped around the yarn. You will have your band, and it will show you and give you the information about what needle size you have to take in knitting needles or in crochet needles, as well as it will tell you how much yarn you have available in weight or in length. To make it easier for you to understand how the setup of a pattern works, I created this drawing for you. You always start on the right side with your work and you end on the left side of your work. That's why I have used an arrow showing from right to left. In the first row of a pattern, you set up the pattern repeat. Therefore, you need to know how much or how many stitches create one pattern repeat. In the example I have shown you here, I'm showing you here, I used the ribbing 1 knit, 1 purl, which means 1 pattern repeat is 1 knit and 1 purled. You will start with the edge stitch, which is not accounted into the stitches you need. You repeat the pattern 1 knit, 1 purl, and you would want to end by the end of the row with the same stitch as you have started, which means in the case of ribbing, figuring out the stitches for ribbing, you need to be able to divide the stitches by 2 because it is 1 knitting, 1 pattern repeat, plus 1 because you want to end the row with the same pattern as you have started it. You also need to add your 2 edge stitches, which I have marked here in green, on the end, in the beginning and in the end, which means if you want to do 1 knit, 1 purl, you need to multiply your pattern repeat as many times as you wish the width of your project, plus 1 because you want to end as you started with a knit stitch, and plus 2, which is the edge stitches. You always start to set up your pattern in the front side row. The back side row will always be knitted in the way as the stitches appear. And you can clearly see I did here just the stockinette pattern. We have a front side which shows the knit stitch clearly, and the knit stitch is shaped like in V, and on the back side it shows the purl stitch, which is shaped like a seed, or you can also say it's shaped like a minus. So you know in that specific pattern the front side is knit stitches showing the V, the back side is seed stitches showing the purl stitch. I'm going to show you now how to do the ribbing one by one. You place your work and your yarn in the left hand. You do the first stitch, the edge stitch. Just drop the edge stitch. You knit 1 stitch. Then you leave the yarn in front. You purl. You knit. You purl. Knit. You purl. And as you can see, it's easy. Once you slip your stitch from the needle, you immediately take the yarn in front or in back for the next stitch. It's easy to do. You purl, knit, purl, and now you start with the knit stitch as explained before. And when you look at your row, you have started with the knit stitch and you have ended with the knit stitch. And now comes the edge stitch on the end of the row, which always is knitted, and you turn your work. After you have now knitted the front row, you are going to work on the back row of your project. The first stitch is just slip it down from the needle, and you started in the front row with a knit stitch, which is of course in reverse on the back side, a purl stitch. So the back row is just knitted the other way around. You start with a purl stitch, you knit, you purl, you knit, you purl, and if you look at your work, you can recognize there comes the V, which is knit stitch, there comes the minus, which is purl, then the V and the minus and the V and the minus, and you knit your edge stitch, turn the work around, and you have created your pattern. You also need to always remember that the setup of a knitting pattern is always created in the front side. The back side always will be knitted as the stitches appear. We are doing now the ribbing 2 by 2. To calculate your stitches for the ribbing, it is a multiply of 4 because the pattern repeat is 2 knit and 2 purl, which makes it 4 stitches. But you would want to end exactly with the same stitches as you started, which is 2 knit stitches, which means your stitches have to be a multiply of 4 plus 2 to end in the same pattern, and plus 2 edge stitches. You start exactly as you do with the ribbing. You have your edge stitch, which is just slipped down, then you start 2 knitting, 2 stitches purl, 2 knitting, 2 purl, 2 knitting, and the last edge stitch is again a knit stitch. You turn your work around, start again with dropping the first stitch, having the yarn in the back, it's the edge stitch, and now that you are on the back row, you have to start with 2 purl, 2 knit, 2 purl, 2 knit, 2 purl, and the edge stitch, and you turn your work around. Now we are going to do the ribbing 4 purl 2 knit stitch. You need to have a multiple of 6 stitches because 4 purl plus 2 knit stitches makes the pattern repeat 6 stitches plus 4, so that you end again with the same stitches as you have started, plus 2, which is the edge stitches. You start with the edge stitch again, pick it up with the yarn in the back, You purl 4 stitches. Now you knit 2. You purl 4 stitches. And the edge stitch again is a knit stitch, and you turn your work. You see that the pattern is now switched. You start again with the edge stitch. You knit now 4 stitches. This is the back side row. You purl 2. You knit 4. And you do the edge stitch, which is knitted again. I'm going to show you now how to create your fringes, which you can use on a scarf, which also look nice as on the bottom of a sweater, if you feel like it. What you have to do, I use always a cover of a DVD to create the threads of the yarn all in same length without measuring it. If I want to have long fringes, I use the length side. If I want to have smaller, shorter fringes, I use the width of a cover. You wind your yarn around the length side or in width. You take your scissor, cut it, and you have already your fringes. You take your scarf. You need as well a crochet needle. Have your scarf on the showing the wrong side, the back side, up. You use 3 of your threads, fold it in half, go with your crochet needle into the first row of your fabric. Take the 3 threads of your yarn, pull it through, make sure your yarn still is folded in half. You can pull on the loop till it's in half, and then you pull the open ends of your fringes through the hole and you pull. That is all you have to do. Again, take your crochet hook, go in the first row, use 3 of your threads, fold it in half, pull it through the stitch on your fabric till you have a loop. Take the open ends with the crochet hook, pull it through the loop, hold your fabric and pull the loop tight. This is the easy way of doing the fringes. In the end, you can cut them as long as you want. If you want to do the fringes a bit different and want to braid them, as I did on this scarf, you repeat the work as I have shown to you. Have the back side showing up, go into the first row, pick up 3 of your threads, the same length, fold it in half, pull it with the hook of your crochet needle through. Make sure it's folded in half. Pull the open ends through the loop. Pull the loop with the threads. Turn it around and you can start using 2 threads each to braid your was heißt das?
Braid.
Braid. You do it while having left and right one of the threads. Start putting the left side over the middle threads. Then come from the right side over the middle, left side, right side, left, right side, left. You continue till the end, and what you do then is just make a knot and pull it. This is the way how to do the braided fringes. Another possibility you would have is do your fringes with some pretty beads which you might have or which you want to get. Therefore you need a special tool to bring the threads of the yarn through the bead. What I used was some of the beading wire. I folded in half. I created a loop while twisting the ends all around. It will help you to get the threads through the bead. You take again 3 of your threads. You have your bead. Go into the bead with your special tool. Have the yarn in the loop. Hold it and you pull the bead over the yarn while pulling on the wire. You fold it in half, and now it becomes a bit tricky. You put your fringes on, showing the front side up. You go into the stitch of the last row, and you have to pull the open end through the hole. And sometimes it doesn't work in the first try, so you just go in it and pull the others all through so that you have all the loose ends on the right side. I did not catch them all, so those are the last ones. And once you have it through, you stretches, make sure that you have it exactly in half, and you pull the open ends through the loop with the bead, and again you pull. That is the way how you get your bead into the fringes and through your fabric. Again, you use your wire tool, have it through the bead, bring your threads of yarn through the loop, pull on the wire and pull the thread through. have it in half, come with your crochet needle through your fabric, pull all threads through your hole. Make sure that it is even and have then your loose threads through the loop and pull it tight. The next pattern how you could change your fringes is with buttons. I used here owls because it is right now just in, so why not owls? You will have a hole in the buttons, and you have to make sure that you have the hole looks like an eye, a hole in the back of the button. Again, you use your wired tool, have your threads in the hole, pull your wired tool through the hole of the button, pull it through, put it in half, use your crochet needle, go into the stitch, have the open ends all pulled through the hole. Make sure you have the same length. Pull the loose ends through the loop and fasten the knot. Again, use your wire tool, go through the hole of the button, have your yarn in the loop of your tool, pull it through the hole of the button, fold it in half, go through your stitch, pull the open ends through, pull the open ends through the loop and pull till your fringes are tightened. You are now ready to create custom projects with a variety of patterns with fringes to your liking. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will have as well in the near future projects under needlework at theomaway.com. Tschüss!